Good evening and welcome. Tonight we will be going over the history and geography of Bihar in India. Bihar state is located in northern India. You can even see that it borders Nepal up here. Nepal, of course, being very famous for the Himalayan mountains up here. And what runs off from the Himalayan mountains is lots of water from all of those glaciers and snow, which creates a plethora of rivers all throughout the state. The most famous of which being the Ganges River, you can see flowing through here, with many rivers joining it or splintering off from it. Let's see, we have the Gandak River coming down through here. We have the Bayanadi River. The Son River is down here. This is the Kosi or Koshi River flowing down through there, also known as the Sorrow of Bihar because it floods frequently, flooding the nearby areas quite devastatingly sometimes. But yeah, there are many more rivers around here, which of course means a lot of irrigation and a lot of good farmland in this state. The Ganges River, if you don't know, is incredibly sacred to Hindus. It's a very holy river. It's very mighty. And it is the center of the Gangetic Plain, which in Bihar is separated on both sides of the river to create the North Bihar Plains and the South Bihar Plains. This state is actually, we'll get into it in history, but it's actually very sacred to many different religions. It's, like we said, to Hindus, Buddhists, we'll look at a Buddhist site in a second, very holy to Jains and Sikhs as well. We'll talk about that in history, just a side note. There is one national park in Bihar. It's not on my map, but it's located up here. It's called the Valmiki National Park or the Valmiki Tiger Reserve. We'll look at it on Google Earth, of course. I think I read that there are 54 tigers living there currently. Hopefully that number will be increasing over the years. Because, of course, it's Bengal tigers, which are very endangered. Oh, this area is also quite seismically active. We do have the Himalayas over there, of course, which are always moving and shifting upward, which creates a bit of earthquakes. There's been some very large earthquakes throughout the 20th century. That's been on record. But I think that's all that I have for you for geography. Patna is the capital, you can see right there. And I'll point out some other important cities throughout history. You can see that there are quite a lot. We're not going to talk about all of them. Bihar is actually very heavily populated. And for India, that's really saying something because India is the most populated country in the world currently. But yeah, we'll talk about the cities important to the history of the entire state. So let's get into it. Actually, before we get into history, I forgot that we have 2 UNESCO sites to talk about first. I love talking about UNESCO sites. Sorry for my squeaky chair. Let me get my tablet going. The first one we are going to talk about is the Mahabodhi Temple Complex at Bodh Gaya. The Mahabodhi Temple Complex is one of the 4 holy sites related to the life of the Lord Buddha, and particularly to the attainment of enlightenment. The first temple was built by Emperor Ashoka in the 3rd century BCE and the present temple dates from the 5th or 6th centuries. It is one of the earliest Buddhist temples built entirely in brick, still standing in India from the late Gupta period. Of course, we're going to look at it on Google Earth as well. It's so beautiful. And this marks the spot where you can see the tree here. Siddhartha Gautama sat underneath the tree, the Bodhi tree, and contemplated life and became enlightened. He reached enlightenment here. So very important to Buddhism. We also have another Buddhist site, the archaeological site of Nalanda Mahavihara at Nalanda, Bihar. The Nalanda Mahavihara site is in the state of Bihar in northeastern India. It comprises the archaeological remains of a monastic and scholastic institution dating from the 3rd century BCE to the 13th century CE. It includes stupas, shrines, viharas, which were residential and educational buildings, and important artworks in stucco, stone, and metal. Nalanda stands out as the most ancient university of the Indian subcontinent. It engaged in the organized transmission of knowledge over an uninterrupted period of 800 years. The historical development of the site testifies to the development of Buddhism into a religion and the flourishing of monastic and educational traditions. And we'll look at this on Google Earth too, because there's some pretty good pictures of this place on Google Earth. You can see some statues there and the remains of the buildings there. And we'll talk about what happened here in history. But yes, the first university in the world that had like a residential component to it, like dorm rooms, basically. Pretty interesting. All right, let's get into the history portion now. Now let's get into history. This is just going to be a brief overview because the early history of Bihar during all those times like we mentioned over there on UNESCO is very extensive. A lot went on here. So this is just a brief overview of those times. So there were, of course, people living here for a very, very long time, very long time ago. The main kingdom that I want to mention from this very early period would be the Videha kingdom. They lived more in the northern part of Bihar, although I'm sure that they governed all of this area here. Their capital was in Mithila, which is the northern area here. Eventually, they would be pushed out by the Luchavis from the north, and they would migrate south and create this city right here called Rajgir, which would be their capital. It wasn't called that back then. Most of these towns had very different names over the years. Patna, for example, has had like 5 different names, so we'll just stick to these. This kingdom would eventually morph into the kingdom of Magadha. And in the 5th century BCE, their king Ajatashatru founded what's now Patna. Back then it was called Pataliputra. The Magadha kingdom would morph into the Maurya Empire with the reign of Chandragupta Maurya, the first empire in India. And he would move his capital to what's now Patna. And that would be where Emperor Ashoka was born, that we mentioned on UNESCO. Very important figure in Indian history and Buddhist history. So let me show you. Here is Gaya. So Bodh Gaya is just like right there in the crease of my book. That would be, like it said on UNESCO, where the Buddha achieved enlightenment and started to preach his teachings, starting here in Bihar, which is pretty neat. Also, a sacred spot for the Jain religion, Jainism, would be about here or so. It's not marked on my map, is the town of Pavaputri. And that is where Mahavira, like the, I guess, like kind of like the Buddha equivalent in Jainism, that's where he would reach nirvana. And very important site for Jainism today. We'll explore all of it on Google Earth. It's all really neat. Lots of neat temples and things there in this area. But back to Ashoka. If you don't know who Emperor Ashoka was, again, Emperor of the Mauryan Empire, he decided to expand his empire through conquering, invading and conquering. And it was at the Battle of Kalinga that he realized what was happening, and he looked around at all of the devastation and death on the battlefield and realized that what he was doing was wrong. So to atone for that and to try to find a solution to what he had done, he discovered Buddhism and converted and spread Buddhism as far as he could. So, very important figure. It's why Buddhism is so prominent in places like here in northern India, Nepal, so on and so forth. It's spread all throughout Sri Lanka, all throughout. After the Maurya Empire came the Gupta Empire, which is considered the golden age of classical India, I should say. Education, art, sculpture, etc. The peak of culture and learning in northern India is what I'm trying to say. And it was after that empire fell that this area really went into decline, because then other empires were popping up. Southern India was taken off at this point, the Cholas, so on and so forth. So this area really fell into obscurity and would never really pick up where it left off, let's say. It was never as grand. Nalanda, that we mentioned on UNESCO, is located like around here, so again, not on my map. But that university that was mentioned was established in the year 427 CE, and it would be destroyed in the 1200s by an invading Muslim army. Again, it was around for such a long time. My goodness, when it's say like 800 years teaching Buddhism, pretty remarkable. Sad that it's destroyed. But yeah, that was like a good example of what was once great and wonderful about this area. And that chapter closed and never really reopened since then. An interesting footnote is the Sur Empire, which sprung up in the 16th century here in Sasaram. It was led by a man named Sher Shah Suri, which is a fantastic name. And he opposed the Mughal Empire, which was ruling over in, like, around Delhi, in that area over there. A Muslim Empire. He was Muslim as well, but he opposed them. He fought them. He actually chased them off for a minute until he died, and they just came right back. But he basically conquered the Mughal Empire, which was no easy feat. We'll look at his tomb here in Sasaram later in Google Earth. But of course, the next great power that would come into this area would be the British. They would settle in about the early 1700s. By the British, I mean at this point it was the British East India Company, not yet the British government. And they would buy, sell, trade, particularly here in Patna. In 1764, they fought the Battle of Buxar, right here, you can see, against the Mughal Empire, which they won and allowed them economic rights, essentially, over this state and many other parts of northern India, which would, of course, eventually lead into colonization from the British Empire. In 1914, the farmers here in Bihar were upset over their working conditions. My goodness, I cannot talk. Were upset over their working conditions, primarily those harvesting indigo not being treated well, and they were trying to figure out a way to rise up and protest without, stepping on the toes of the British Empire too much, because then, bad things would happen to them. So they enlisted the help of a man. You may not have heard of some obscure guy named Mahatma Gandhi. This was his first major peaceful protest in India after he left South Africa, which is pretty remarkable. This is where pretty much his story started, with, what would eventually lead to Indian independence. It all started here in Bihar with the indigo farmers. Post-independence, not much has gone on in Bihar compared to the rest of India. There were some revolts, protests rising up of the Dalit. I'll explain what that is. So, Bihar is primarily Hindu. There are many Muslims here, there are many Buddhists here, but it's primarily Hindu. And in traditional Hinduism, you have the caste system, which is essentially like a position in society based on birthright, based on who you were born from. And you had the Brahmins at the very tippy top. There were many other layers. At the bottom, you had the Dalits. And you could never leave your caste. You could only marry within the caste. And the Dalits were very unfortunate because they're considered the untouchables. You can't look at them, speak to them, obviously touch them. They're called untouchables, right? The lowest of the low, doing like the bottom of the barrel jobs in society. That's a very outdated method of living compared to the rest of the world. So, of course, they spoke up. From what I understand, the caste system is still very much a thing in Bihar today. I don't think it's as extreme as it was even like 100 years ago. But it still exists in Bihar from what I can tell. The only other thing that I have for history was in the year 2000, when you can see down here is Jharkhand. Used to be part of Bihar, they split it up. See right here? So this all used to be Bihar down here, and they made a new state. So now it's just this up here, much smaller than it used to be. And that's pretty much all that I have for you for history. So I have quite a bit to show you on Google Earth, so we're going to go hop over there and check it out. Here we are in Bihar State. Let's start by zooming out so you can see exactly where we are in the world. Here is the Indian subcontinent, thusly named because this used to be its own continent. The plates moved it up, colliding with Asia, creating the Himalayas up here, as both plates ran into each other and continued to run into each other, creating the tallest mountains in the world. So you can see just how green it is underneath the Himalayas because of all of that water running down from the mountains, which is why Bihar is so very green. I guess we start in Patna. You can see the beautiful Ganges River flowing by. I just realized I don't remember what I was going to show you in Patna. I guess we'll look at the museum, but from what I recall, this slideshow wasn't that great. The old Raj House. like many museums in India. It's the big tiger. It's the old homes of the colonizers who ruled over this place once upon a time. Now it's historical. But yeah, it's nice. But I have better things to show you. I'm just going to show you. Let's just look at Patna. You can see how big and bustling it is because, of course, we are in India. Let's take a look. Big train station. Of course, there's a big, long rail line running through the state, like pretty much every state in India. They have a very extensive rail system. Pretty. Oh, how beautiful. Look at the waterfall. Yeah, most of the things I wanted to show you is actually not in Patna. So, this is a nice little tour, I think. You can see some of the pretty buildings here. Nice. Okay. I guess we'll start up at the Tiger Reserve, actually. Get that out of the way, because everything else I want to show you is down here. So let's see. I was going through Google Earth this morning, and it was not cooperating with me. But it looks like it's doing well now. I'm so glad. Valmiki Tiger Reserve. So here's what you'd see. If you went there, hopefully you'd see some tigers. Not so in this slideshow, unless it's updated since I last checked it. But it's still very beautiful. Lots of little shrines and things. You can ride an elephant. Big beautiful trees. Cool stones all stacked around too. But yeah, this is the only national park in the state. Look at all the rocks stacked up. Let's head down here. And I promised I would show you. Goodness, there's so much to look at. I'm going too far. I can see Varanasi. We went way too far. Alright, I had to put the borders back on to find Sasaram. Because I have to show you this cool tomb here. Look at it from above. The tomb of Sher Shah Suri. Great name. Sher Shah Suri. So he designed this tomb before his death. So of course it's very grand and elaborate. Very beautiful. Look at all the tombs inside. A little island here. This man-made lake. All the brick detail. I think there's another tomb nearby for his son. But this one's way cooler. Whoa, big. Alright. Let's head over to Gaya. There we go. So there you can see Bodh Gaya. That's where we're heading. And you can see there are so many temples around here and so many resorts as well. A big vacation spot, right? Gotta make sure I'm going to the right one. Archaeological Museum. We gotta check that out. Let's see what we find here. Hopefully it's not just, okay, Buddhist there. Let's see, hopefully it's not just pictures of the exterior. We want to see what's inside. Beautiful. All kinds of old statues and stonework. Isn't that lovely? Oh wow, that's incredible. Pretty. A little bit of the exterior. Alright. We want to see the temple. I don't remember where it was. There's so many monasteries. Here we go. Mahabodhi Temple. If this map were in 3D, it would be easier to find. The Mahabodhi Temple. Look at that. It's really beautiful. Like it said, originally built by Emperor Ashoka. And one of the most holiest sites in Buddhism. All lit up there, it's pretty. don't think that's where it actually is. I think it's like more over, like, probably over here. I don't think it's right there, but let's see. Pretty Buddha there, all gold. More of the temple. There's the tree. Bodhi tree. There we go. People praying down at it. Ta-da. He's trying to achieve enlightenment. Good place to try. Has a good track record, I suppose. Whoa, those are cool. Oh, pretty at night, all lit up. Prayer bell here. Lots of monks here praying at the tree. Wow. Very neat place. This would definitely be a place I'd have to visit whenever I visit India. It's not if, it's when I have to go to India. Let's see. Let me remember if there's anything in Gaya I wanted to show you. I'm not positive. I don't think so. There's so much more to show you. I need to show you. Make sure I'm situated. And there's Patna. Rajgir. There's so much to see here. This is where I was playing this morning. There's so much in this little town. You can see the current Nalanda University. But yeah, over here I have to show you this that I found this morning. This Jain museum. This is so beautiful. It's all miniatures and they're all so intricate. Look at this. It's just all a bunch of miniatures. Wow. I'm sure telling the history of the faith and stories and things. Jainism is pretty much like every cosmic mythical aspect of Hinduism and Buddhism, just all mushed together, basically. So it's very spiritual. It's very esoteric. Look how pretty all these little... It's so pretty. I would spend hours here looking at all of these little things. All these little dioramas, all the details. That's spectacular. Over here, you can see the Cyclopean wall, but I think there's a better slideshow over here. If I recall, yeah, the Cyclopean wall. Named so after the Cyclopes, the islands in the Mediterranean, because it's the same style of wall that the Minoans used to build, cutting the rocks just so that they'd all fit together. So this was the wall of the ancient capital. How neat is that? If I zoom out, you can see it from above. Still existing today. This is pretty neat. Chariot marks left by Krishna. So this is a little sacred spot. You can do little tours here. Hear about the mythology. And Krishna once rode his chariot through here. I think there's a picture, of a tour happening there at the chariot marks. That's pretty neat. Up here, there's like a wildlife safari over there too, all kinds of animals, but we won't look at that. Up here, right? Is it this one? Yeah, this one. The Buddha gave a sermon up here once upon a time. So there's a stupa here to commemorate that, and it's a peace stupa. Peace on earth, which I'm all about. Wow. Yeah, this hilly area is really beautiful. I think there's a shot of the inside. There's the peace bell. Yeah, pretty. All gold, of course, because laying gold leaf. There's some monkeys there. Laying gold leaf is a sign of respect. these hills are remarkable. If I put it in 3D, you can really see, you can definitely tell why they made this spot the capital, because you have all these hills to defend you, building all kinds of walls around. Let me see. I found a slideshow that just kind of showed this whole area, but I don't remember where I found it. I don't remember where I found it, unfortunately. There's this horrible glass bridge, which I disagree with. You couldn't pay me to get all that. But, yeah, these hills are really, here we go. These hills are very beautiful. No thank you. No thank you, no thank you, no thank you. Oh, that's, even that, I'm not sure about that. I'll set that one out. If we go, let's see, there's Nalanda. You can see the ruins of Nalanda University. You can see them from above as well. And yeah, look at all this. It is like an actual campus too. You can wander all throughout. Wow. There's a map. You can see what once was this great center of learning. Another bell. Wow. Thankfully all of the neat carvings and statues intact. What was that? Oh, more slideshows there of the old university, the main gate there. What was that? Buddha statue. It's a very holy place for Buddhists here. Let's see. I feel like I'm forgetting something that I wanted to show you. I cannot remember. Hopefully it wasn't in Patna, because I do not remember. I always encourage you guys to check these places out for yourself, because in the more rural areas there really isn't much to show you. Even in some of these big cities, the slideshows aren't terribly impressive. So why don't we find just a random spot, and I guess we'll just close out the video. If there's something that I was like, oh darn, I definitely meant to show them that and I completely forgot, I'll drop it down in the comments. But I think I've got it. Oh, I don't want to go too far south. Let's check out Muzaffarpur. I see big old cities here. Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, let's look through this and end the video. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoy this style of content, please consider subscribing. This is an ongoing series on my channel. Next, we're going to be heading over to Montenegro, and we're actually going to be doing a tablet-only video for this place in Montenegro. Not because my map is terrible, but mostly just because the history section is not going to be terribly long. And the landscape I want to show you more than anything. It's so beautiful there. So we're just going to do tablet stuff next time. So be sure to subscribe so you won't miss out. You don't want to miss all of these beautiful mountains and hills. Oh my goodness, that's incredible. Wow. Look at all the offerings down there with papayas, mangoes. Maybe both. That's cool. That's a neat canopy. I like that. I hope that you found this video to be relaxing and educational, and I hope that you have a good